Welcome to Cars on Call. I am automotive journalist Steve Schutz. I'm here with trauma surgeon Stefan Moran. Stefan, how are you?
I'm doing much better, thank you.
Good. Yeah, we talked about your dad. He's doing better. Hello, farmer, if you're listening. Hi.
Oh, he'll be listening. Yeah, he's doing great.
I
Yes,
love it. I hope he continues to improve. It's such a great guy.
absolutely. Best dad ever.
Yeah. So Adams is unavailable again. He has some family issues he's attending to, and we wish him and his family well on this Easter weekend. So this is going to be not the longest one. We're probably going to wrap up after 45 minutes, but we do, Stefan, have some stuff to talk about. I know you've got a safety topic. This is the only podcast that talks about automotive safety from the standpoint of a trauma surgeon who has a lot of experience operating on trauma surgeon or trauma patients that have been in car accidents and has done research on car accidents. And that research was for Mercedes, right, Stefan?
Yeah, that was long college. That was 25 years ago for Mercedes-Benz at the University of Alabama. They sponsored our crash investigation research engineering network program there. And that was 4 years, a lot of fun. Enjoyed that. We went to some meetings together. And I got to present my dad at meetings where you were the your journalist meetings that you participate in. I always think people know what I'm talking about and need a little more detail, but
I'll give you
uh,
detail. You spoke at Western Automotive Journalists, and there's one esteemed journalist who's been writing about cars forever. He's now passed, but he told me afterwards, and you weren't there. He didn't say, it's not like he's trying to butter you up. He told me later, he said, that's the best speaker we've ever had. And then you
wow,
also spoke at Motor Press
there's
Guild, which
Guild.
is the automotive journalist group out of LA. It's if you are an automotive journalist, you are a member of Motor Press Guild, and you spoke to them too.
So yeah, in the background there, you can see I've got the framed picture. Hard to see, but I've got the framed picture of MPG, the newsletter that came out with me on the front cover. Photos in the article by Pete Lyons, the famous journalist,
Famous,
famous
yeah,
Pete Lyons. I've got several of his books up here on the shelves. Amazing photographer.
amazing, amazing guy. So we got a bunch of topics to talk about. We're going to talk about Stellantis. It is not possible to talk about Stellantis these days and have good news or have anything good to say. We
Well,
actually
I
have,
think
look, yeah,
we might have some good news to talk about with Stellantis.
I think we
Possibly.
do.
Yeah, it
A,
is.
a
The
glimmer of
potential for good news.
a glimmer of light, Stefan.
Yes, they need it.
And then you have your safety topic. And again, a trauma surgeon talking about safety, you're not going to get that anywhere else. There's a car spotting. I think I'm going to save that for the end. It's a weird, obscure one, but it's interesting. And then I have to give Doug DeMuro credit for one topic that I want to talk about with you because you're a Ford guy. Doug DeMuro and his podcast talked about we have a Mercedes G wagon, incredibly popular. I mean, I've driven the old version, I drove the new version. It's a great vehicle.
They even have an
And
electric version now.
there's an electric version now. And it is like if you're rich, this is the SUV to have. Very famously, Daniel Mack, who says, "Hey, I love your car. What do you do for a living in Beverly Hills?" Uh, stopped a very attractive young woman who was very well dressed. She was probably 20 years old, very pretty, and she gets out of the car and he asked her, and she smiled and very famously said, "I'm a stay-at-home daughter," which is such a great line. All right, so
Yes.
here's the glimmer of hope from Stellantis, and they had success, and this is something that I have observed. And Stefan, you probably know this more than I do, being in the South. Um, it seems, from my observations, that the Dodge Challenger and Charger, particularly the Charger, which have just been phased out. There it is. Oh, that red, it's just a beautiful car, just been phased out. It was disproportionately popular with African Americans, and it just they just killed it. It was especially popular if you got a V8, and they said, no, we're not going to do the Dodge Charger anymore. Or that's the Dodge Charger there. So the Hellcat V8 is gone, the regular V8, the Scat Pack, all these wonderful V8s are gone, Hemi, and it's replaced by go ahead and scroll down to the
No.
oh, that's the University of Georgia version there. Sorry, it's crashed. I just read, Stefan, that there were more football players involved in automobile crashes in the last 2 years at University of Georgia than they had wins.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it? But I mean, this is a popular car amongst the football crowd, or was he as the what the English you call them the ballers? That's what they call their soccer players over there. They call them ballers, and there's typical cars that they drive. And the Hellcat Charger is very popular amongst the football players. But it's sad that there have been that many crashes, and I'm sure some fatalities as well. But that's a lot of motor in that car, and in the hands of a college student, uh, this is not going to end well.
Yeah, youth, testosterone, horsepower, and alcohol is a bad combination.
Yes.
And then scroll down, and there's the new one. This is the Daytona. It's been released. It was released early in the year, I think January.
Have you ever seen
And
one?
oh, absolutely not.
I'm yeah.
They can't sell
I've
them.
never seen one. I mean, yeah,
It's electric only.
yeah, yeah. But you can dial in the sounds, and it makes different noises.
You can listen to the sounds while you're waiting for it to charge for an hour.
Yeah, here's the point with this new EV that Daytona is. Hyundai has shown successfully you can sell an EV if it doesn't look like the rest of your lineup, and it looks like something which people would think is a new design, new features that look like an EV. You can't take a car to me that just looks like a rehash of a former Dodge and throw an electric motor in it and expect it to sell. People, that doesn't appeal to that crowd whatsoever. People like me, you and I, you look at that car. That should have a V8. It's even got a bulge in the hood. And it's so you're like, wait a minute, there's an electric motor in there. I'd have the same feeling if I saw a Mustang with an electric motor in it. They call it the Mach-E, but it doesn't look like the Mustang. So I think that, and yeah, their sales of that are just abysmal. And if they want to save the company, they got to go back to throwing engines in them.
Yeah, it
So
looks, I would say it looks feminized, and it's a pretty boy. And if you scroll up to the Charger, not the crash one, but the Charger, the old Charger, that it looks a little bit ugly, a little bit nasty,
a
and
little bit
cer
angry.
a little bit angry, and it's
Yeah.
it's masculine, and the other one just looks feminized, and this
Yeah.
is this is the above car as it starts its transition journey.
So Doge is going to get rid of that one, I guess. But
It's terrible.
it's
It's
terrible. It is
70.
terrible. So anyway, so they're going to be bringing back gas motors in these vehicles.
They're going to
So
bring it back, yeah, this summer, I think, right, Stefan?
it's not totally the word on the street. It is, but there has not been an official announcement, but it's kind of been leaked. So they're going to have two straight six inline sixes called the Hurricane, is what we've been told, but they haven't totally officially committed like that they're going to put the big V8 back in it. And what I would tell you is it's not going to sell with a straight six. Now you have to they will sell models with the straight six like they sell Mustangs with the EcoBoost 4 and 6 cylinders, okay? But a car like this has to have a Halo V8 in it. That's what it is. It's an old American muscle car. So if they want to build some models with the straight six, the Hurricane, I have no problem. But they have to have a model with the big V8 in it. Otherwise, the car won't have street cred. It'll have no cred.
Just like the EcoBoost Mustang sells to either rental fleets or high school girls, it's going to be the same with the Charger,
Right.
this Daytona. And if
Or
they sell,
somebody that wants a Mustang really bad and has had several crashes and they can't afford the insurance for the V8. That that does happen. It's,
oh,
it's
I hadn't
cheaper
thought about
insurance
that.
to get the EcoBoost. Yes. So I have read that there people do make that choice from an insurance. If it's your first car, you're stretching payments, you really want the GT, you're 20 years old and you're male with a previous speeding conviction, and you see the insurance price and you change the engine. So there's cases for it, but Ferrari putting the six in the Dino didn't do well for that car initially. And cars like this, it's got to have a V8.
Yeah. It reminds me of an old expression that I heard many years ago, and I think it speaks to life, and that is, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. I mean, if you're going to be a bear, be a bear. And this is not being a bear. This is, it's wimped. It's this Car and Driver had this cover when the Pontiac Trans Am went from a V8 to a turbo V6. And do you remember what they said?
No.
They had a picture of the car on the cover and it said, two strikes, no balls.
Oh my gosh.
But it was true. And that
I
car
gotta
never
say,
sold.
I got a car and drive. I'm gonna see if I can pull it. This is where car and driver. What is it? Two strikes,
No
no balls.
balls. This it would have been like 1984-ish. It was a
Okay.
new version of the maybe 83, 84, the new Pontiac Trans Am and the Z28 Camaro. And
Yeah.
the Trans Am, I guess it was a V8, but it was a smaller V8 and it was like 4 liter. It had been 6.6 and
Yeah.
I went to a 4 liter with a turbo and it didn't sound right. And that's the best description. Two strikes, no balls.
Yeah. I couldn't find it.
That's right.
That's hysterical. All right. I tried.
Well, let's go to safety. By the way,
All right.
kudos to Stellantis. We hope you do it.
I hope they do it because I
Got to
don't
do
want to.
it.
I love Dodge. I mean, I never Chrysler no, but Dodge is just they were always. I mean, they did the Viper and they've done the history with the Dodge brothers and racing and the V8s and the muscle cars. They can't they can't let that go away.
Hey, Stefan, before you
Yeah.
go safety. All right, you got a personal anecdote. We were driving my new 911 from Atlanta to
Oh
Boise,
yeah.
and you followed a V8 Challenger.
Yes. And it was a big one. And yeah, we that's
He was
when
going like 120.
yeah we did yeah we went very we I had the best between Phillip average speed I've ever had in my life on that. I mean, we were running our own cannonball. That was
Yeah,
that was fantastic. And he was bird dog, man, out front, and I let him run with it. And I stayed back about a quarter mile, watching the exit ramps behind me. And boy, we covered mileage. We were smoking down the road. That was a lot of fun.
it was.
He
Go
definitely
chat.
had big balls because he was out front.
Go V8.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk safety.
All right, so recently the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration just published so it takes them a while to gather data, but they have some new preliminary data and estimates for 2024. So we're looking at last year. And so there are 39,345 traffic fatalities in 2024. And that's the lowest rate since 2019. So basically, since COVID, our fatalities went way up and they're coming down. So we still are way more fatalities than we ever should have on our roadways, especially thinking about how rich this country is compared to other countries. But it's about a 3.8% decrease. It's nice to be under 40,000 because the kind of the benchmark that you can say is we still at one for a long time we killed more people on our highways than we did in the entire Vietnam War. And that's crazy to think about that in a year. So 3.8% decrease. It's first time since 2020 that the numbers have been below 40,000. So that's good. But however, this still is way higher than where we were 10 years ago. But and what's interesting about the new data is Americans are driving more miles. So we're putting more miles on our vehicles. So even though our traveling has gone up, the number of miles we spend a year in our vehicles, the death rates went down. So that's a good correlation. So spending more time driving and fewer people are dying. So that's a trend in the right direction. That's very good. And let's see. So the rate for 2024 is going to be to 1.20 fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. And that's just kind of the standard that you compare the year-to-year data. Look at other countries. So for every 100 million mile, yes, at the million vehicle miles traveled, how many people die? So 1.2 fatalities. But 7 years back in 2019, we were at 1.13. So still, I mean, big difference. And that was kind of where we're at for like the 7 years prior to COVID. So we hopefully we'll get back to that pre-COVID number. Now, they have not published the data on pedestrians come out yet, but preliminary data looks like that for pedestrians is going to have gone down in 2023. We've talked a lot about pedestrian deaths, how they'd soared in this country compared to other countries. And so that's the first decrease since COVID as well. But they're still higher than pre-pandemic levels. 2023 was 14% above the number in 2019. So we're still high. And kind of the sad thing when we talk about U.S. pedestrian deaths in 2022, that there are 3 times the median rate of 27 other high-income countries. 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That's shocking.
it's absolutely shocking, but take a look at bike lanes and, drivers don't know bike lanes. So look at pedestrian crossings. You try to cross the road, there's 2 lanes on your side, there's a median, 2 lanes opposing traffic. The same, there's a double right-hand turn. I mean, it's just our roads are too big with pedestrian crossings, and they were never designed for pedestrians. And now we're backtracking and adding bicycle pathways. And really, realistically, you want to be in a community that is planned for pedestrians if you plan on being a pedestrian. But yeah, it's difficult. So hopefully the numbers will continue to try and go down, and it'll be interesting once we get more data from this. Way to look at see where have we gotten that? Where's the decrease in fatalities come from? And the other big thing is there's also a push, which I think will help, is consumers as well as NHTSA is starting to look at, they want more dials in the car, meaning we know drivers are distracted in these vehicles when you've got to go through 5 different screens to change the temperature. You just need to reach up and spin a dial for your temperature, reach up, spin a dial for the volume, spin a dial for your headlights. Do simple things like that rather than being distracted by the screen. But that's all. We'll talk about that more in the future. So,
Beautiful. Well, some good news there too. We got good news from
yeah,
Dodge and good news from Stefan.
good news from safety. Yeah. And some
Yeah.
potential good news coming up talking about Lincoln as well.
Yeah. Let's get into that because I think so. I have to give credit. I wish I had thought of this, but I got to give credit to Doug DeMuro because he talked about it. But you're a Ford guy and
So
wants
tell
to.
some of our listeners may not know who Doug DeMuro is.
He is a YouTuber and he's a very popular YouTuber. He used to work for Porsche AG in Atlanta, so Porsche corporate, and he started doing YouTube car reviews on the side. And he's got a very interesting personality. It's funny how people either catch on or they don't, and it's hard to predict who's going to catch on. I would not have predicted Doug DeMuro would catch on. He
I mean, I don't know Doug personally. I don't know anything about him, but he talks about the quirks in vehicles. What's his 2 expressions? Quirks and
features.
features. But Doug DeMuro is a very quirky individual.
Yeah,
He's got quirky maneuver. I don't, I'm not going to, he's a quirky dude who talks about cars, quirky features. And I do enjoy his videos. They're a little bit long for me. But he does point out some really cool things in cars. And I do enjoy watching him on occasion. But he also started Cars and Bids, which is similar to Bring a Trailer.
exactly. It's very popular car auction website. But Doug is interesting to me. I just find these things fascinating because he's not very good looking. His voice is a little different. He certainly does not have the typical radio voice.
He was not
He
Mr. Popular in high school, okay?
no, he was he was one of the nerds. There's jocks and nerds. He was like me, one of the nerds. And he doesn't have a smooth way of imparting his information. He is kind of quirky. He gets overly enthusiastic. And then he picks on these weird little quirks and features that nobody would even notice. And he puts this all together and it works.
Yes.
And he gets tons of followers. And I have to say, it's funny. You put a package out there and you don't really know how it's going to be received. It's like a band. You put music out And some bands, they just connect and other bands don't. And it's, you just don't know.
Chemistry. Yep.
And it's chemistry, but you can't predict it. You can't
Right.
say, okay, these are the ingredients and this is what we're going to have. A good example, this reminds me of, this is a great example. There was a guy who was a musician and he was a really good guitarist. No one ever fucking heard of this guy. And he puts out a record and it becomes the best selling rock record of all time when it came out. He outsold everything that the Led Zeppelin ever did, everything that the Beatles ever did. He outsold every other artist ever with an album that didn't make any sense. It's called Frampton Comes Alive. No one ever heard of Peter Frampton, and he comes out with this record, and it just goes crazy because there was something about the audience that like, we want this. You can't predict it. And Doug DeMuro's like that. I mean, Peter Frampton, also not the best looking guy in the world, not the best guitarist in the world, not the best voice in the world, but somehow it worked. All right. Anyway, what was my point? I know what my point
Anyway,
was.
his idea, yeah, his idea he came up with.
All right. So I'm going to ask you, Stefan, you could put the picture up. I asked ChatGPT, make a Lincoln Bronco. And his point, Doug DeMuro's point was, hey, Mercedes has a G Wagon. Why not a Lincoln Bronco? And I think he, just like Lexus, that's yours. I no, I didn't. That's
Does
not
it?
what I had. That must be your version because that's like a Lincoln G Wagon. But I made ChatGPT. I sent you an email,
Okay,
and
let me.
ChatGPT made a Lincoln Bronco that actually looks like the Bronco. That kind of looks
Okay,
like the Bronco, but
all right,
that
here we
looks more like
go.
a G Wagon.
Yeah, here we go. Hold on, let me sure. Yeah, that's the one I. Let
I
me
don't. That looks too
change.
much like a G Wagon.
Okay, hold on a second. Here. I'll bring up your. The other one I found. I thought they were the same. Here's yours.
Yeah, see, that looks more like less like a G Wagon. And I think as soon as I heard that, I'm like, that is a great idea, but maybe it's just me. Stefan, what do you, is this stupid or is
So
this
before you
smart?
so some of our listeners may not be familiar with the G Wagon. Just briefly tell them about the G Wagon. While I'm gonna get a picture of the G Wagon because everybody's seen a G Wagon, and you're kind of
It
like,
is, it was a commission that was given to Mercedes in the late 1970s by, of all people, the Shah of Iran. He said, I want a reliable, go anywhere military vehicle like a Jeep, but better built than a Jeep. And they made the Geländewagen off-road vehicle that was very boxy and very tough for Iran. And then they
there
thought,
it is.
this is a pretty good vehicle. We can sell it to civilians. So they sold the Geländewagen all over the world, starting in the 1970s. It was very utilitarian, very much like a Land Rover Defender. And then it just kind of, like the Land Rover Defender, became a cult classic. They didn't change it from 1975 until around 2018 or 19. And then they changed it completely under the skin, but they made it look the same. It's very hard, unless you know what you're looking for, to tell if it's a new version or old version. The new version is completely different, but it's the same. It's got a ladder frame, body on frame, but it's much more sophisticated, much nicer to drive. And this has become the darling of like Beverly Hills for rich women.
It is. Very cool. I mean, I think they're pretty cool. I can't imagine that they're very comfortable and they're boxy, but it's a total status symbol. So yeah, I think so. Doug's idea that Lincoln should do this. I want to talk a little bit about Lincoln first, and let me pull up this.
Before we talk about Lincoln, I will say this, having driven the new one and the old one, they're both great to drive. The new one's better. It is very comfortable, has a great ride. It's not boxy. I mean, it's not jump bumpy. Sorry. It is boxy, but it feels very, very comfortable. It's not that much different from like an Escalade or anything like that. It's great to drive.
So here's Lincoln's current lineup, and so it raises the question: why do they need another SUV? Well, the G Wagon is not just another SUV. It is a truly functional, almost ultra luxury military Hummer. It's like if Hummer made a perfect luxury version that was good for the road, not
Yes.
not the versions that GM did, but that's what the G Wagon did because this has almost military roots. So here's Lincoln's current lineup. They got the Corsair, the Nautilus, the Aviator, and the Navigator, and I mean, very nice lineup. But they're all kind of Audi. The Corsair, Nautilus, and Aviator to me are kind of like Audi. You've got small, medium, large cookie cutters, and then you've got the Navigator, which is a giant, like the big Ford Expedition. So yes, so think about it. These are not really utilitarian SUVs. These are not something you're going to want to really take off-road if most G-Wagons ever do it. But it's the idea of having the capability. So, and clearly
Right.
there are Ford fanatics that like the Bronco, but they're like, man, if I could have a totally gussied up, ultra luxurious Bronco, kind of like, which would be a G-Wagon almost, but it would be a Range Rover, but more of a utilitarian. So think about taking a Range Rover, and the Defender really doesn't quite fit it. But think about taking a Range Rover, the Defender, a little further upscale, utilitarian, and that's where this Bronco would kind of fit in. So I personally think it's a fantastic idea, and I really do hope they could do it. And I think, of any Ford CEOs of late, I think Jim Farley is a guy that absolutely would do this. I mean, I think there is a niche for ultra luxury off-road. Mercedes is it, so that they can do it. Think about it. There's some heritage. Lincoln's got heritage. The Bronco could fit into that, the Americana type vibe. Expand identity. I just think it's a great deal. And how much cost would it be? They're using the Bronco platform.
Minimal.
No, and I think man, would it stand out? I think it would bring people into a Lincoln dealership that would never considered going to Lincoln. Because I'm sure there's people that would like to have a Bronco, but they're like, that's really not me. But a Lincoln, I mean, I'm sorry, like the Bronco Raptor. What do they call it? Yeah, the Raptor
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some people that are like, yeah, I'd like it to look a little classier, but I'd love to have that. It'd be your G-Wagon. I, I think I think it'd be a very smart move.
I think, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. By the way, Mercedes, if you look at Mercedes lineup, it looks just like Lincoln's. It's a bunch of crossovers that are
Yeah.
not designed to be off-road and have no off-road capability. But the G-Wagon still sells, even though there's more comfortable alternatives because the G-Wagon has more capability and just looks tougher. I think another reason that I think it would succeed is a lot of people, we don't talk about this much, but a lot of people choose a vehicle because of the dealership. And I don't mean like they know the dealer or something like that. I just mean, for example, I've had three LX Lexuses in a row. It's a Toyota Land Cruiser. It's the same thing. I could go buy a Toyota, but I don't buy a Toyota because I know Lexus is going to give me nice things like pick up and drop off at my office. I never have to go to the dealership. There's a bunch of nice things, and it's just more luxury. It's a nicer thing to drive, even though it's got the same capability as the Land Cruiser. I think there's Lincoln people that say, hey, if I could go to a Lincoln dealer and get the Ford Bronco, but get all the benefits, let's say they can make you a latte. You get a nice water bottle. You can sit there. It's a very nice environment to sit there and maybe work from home or something. It's a nicer dealership than a Ford dealership.
When we lived in Huntsville, I bought three used cars from the Lincoln dealership because they had at the time they did the flat rate pricing. This is like 20 years ago. But I took my Ford truck to the Lincoln dealership for service because I liked going there way better. And here's some other AI generated pictures of what the Lincoln on a Bronco platform could look like. And I think they look great. All right, Steve, so let's do this. So here's the next thing. What would you call a Lincoln version of the Bronco?
I was thinking about that, and I just couldn't think of anything because there's no Lincoln heritage you can
Right.
pull from. There was the
I actually asked Chat GPT because I had the same problem.
Well, Doug DeMuro said Blackwood because they used to have a Lincoln Blackwood, which was a version of the F-150.
Right.
I didn't like that. I
I didn't
disagree
like
with
that
that.
either. Yeah, I disagree with that. So here,
So what do you think? I don't know.
here's what let me tell you what Chat GPT came up with. The Lincoln Laredo. They said it's got Western grit, comes off the tongue. The Lincoln Continental Trail. So it'd be like the Continental, like the or the Mark T. So going back, um, that's okay. The Lincoln Summit, the Lincoln Mesa, and the Lincoln Timberline. I kind of like the Lincoln Laredo. To me, it
Yeah,
just
but Jeep has a
that,
trademark on that because they
oh,
have the
do they?
Laredo version of their
Oh,
Grand
I didn't
Cherokee.
know that. All right,
There's the Grand Cherokee Laredo. There's no way they could that I'm sure
that
they have
wouldn't work.
trademarked.
Yeah, yeah. So then I don't know what they call it, but I agree that wouldn't Blackwood wouldn't. No, they can't. That's associated with the truck, and I wouldn't bring that back.
Yeah, I just I can't really think of a name.
No, I can't
Um,
either. I would have gone with a Laredo, but they can't do it.
what about the Granite? Lincoln Granite.
Yeah, Ford Tough.
Yeah, but it's Lincoln Tough.
I know Lincoln Tough, so it's like a rock. That's that Chevy, like a rock. Um, but I really do hope they do this because honestly, it's like I like the Bronco Raptor and I like the Ranger Raptor. I like the F-150 Raptor version, but I got the Platinum version. I really didn't want to be driving around in a Raptor, but man, one of these with the Raptor motor in it, I mean, in a Lincoln as their top of the line, oh hell yeah. I mean, I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
Home run,
The-
Jim Farley. I hope you're listening.
Yeah, you know, you got to be careful with the name because, I
Yes.
was thinking something like Trailmaster, but that's like a
Th-
Nissan, you don't, or
Yeah.
a Hyundai, a Kia even. It's not good. You got to come up with something that's original and it has to say luxury, but also capability.
How about
Uh,
the L wagon?
oh,
Oh, I know it's bad.
wow.
Oh, that's bad.
Well,
It's
the
terrible.
G-Wagon, I just mentioned what
It's
it
from
stands for,
Gelände wagon. Gelände wagon.
Geländewagen,
Gelände
and
wagon.
that just sounds cool, and
Yeah.
it's luxurious because it's a different language. Maybe something Spanish. Audi came up with Quattro for their four-wheel drive, and just being Spanish made it seem more luxurious. I guess we'll have to let AI continue to work on that.
Yeah.
Last, we I saw a weird car, and this is in the whole area of seemed like a good idea. If you think about it, it's a good idea, and then it's a dumb idea. And this was the 19 mid 1980s. This is a 1986 Pulsar NX. This is a Nissan, and it's a little runabout. It's front wheel drive. It's got a little engine, little four cylinder in the front, and it's a little sport thing. But you could buy the sport back, and this was just a package. Like you buy it as an option, and so you could take off, scroll up to the red one. You take off the hatch, which is kind of not even really a hatch, but you could take that off. It's removable,
In
and then
addition
you
to the whole T-top. Yeah.
yeah, and then you put on this thing that has a hinge. I mean, it's openable, but you turn it into a station wagon, and you open that, and you can put almost anything back. There's a lot more space, so it's this weird configurable thing, but it didn't catch on. The reason I thought of this was I actually saw one on the street recently, and I took a picture. I just couldn't find it on my phone, but I took a picture of that thing with the wagon back on it, and I know that back in that guy's house, he probably has the other top.
Yeah, I remember when these cars came out, and my first impression was just like, was stupid.
Right.
It's just stupid. And I think the reason I didn't, at the time we were probably what year did you say these came out?
84-ish, 85, 86,
84,
something
so
like
I
that.
would have been, yeah, 84. They said there'd be no more math. So I was in my late mid 20s. But think about it. So if you get this thing and you've got this gigantic removable T-top, then you got the hatch that comes off, and then you've got this truck deck lid to pack. The people that in this is kind of really, this is a budget entry level car. You live in an apartment. Okay,
Right.
where are you going to put this stuff? You can't. I mean, it was stupid, but yeah, you got it, and can you store it at I mean, you had nowhere. You store it at mom and dad's, I guess. But and it looks stupid with that thing on the back, and I don't know. It just, I saw these, and I was like, and then every now and you'd see somebody driving around with that back half off, and the met time, I'm like, no, just no, this thing is just.
It
And
reminds me of the GMC. I was thinking Encore Envoy, and they had a special version where you could open up the top, and it was
oh
like for a
yeah,
grand piano. So if you just Google GMC Envoy uh,
that's the
roof
open.
open,
Yeah.
it was the XL something,
Yeah, here it is.
and it
Yeah, yeah,
and
let me
it,
pull it
and
up.
it they advertised it with a grandfather clock sticking out the back
Yeah, I found it. Let me
because the whole
open.
top didn't open, just the a little bit of the top in the back opened. Like
Yeah.
literally for a grandfather clock was the only case use for it. That's it.
Yeah. And they leaked and they squeaked and they were
Right.
incredibly top heavy. That's the other thing so I'm talking, so if you look at this versus the standard, this is going to have a much higher, you're going to be more likely to be more injured in this vehicle because as you raise the center of gravity, your rollover rate goes up. And the last thing you want to do is roll your vehicle over. So this is something like think this is just like it this is just top heavy and it's going to fall over on its side and it's going to roll. So yeah, bad all around. Worse gas mileage, it weighs more noise, it leaks, and yeah, I'm sure some engineer thought this was a really great idea, but
Yeah. The concept sounds good. You're like, oh yeah, that'd be great because it gives you extra utility. But if it's very hard to execute it, and then people aren't going to want it. It's not going to sell. I would have told them when this came. I didn't. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, that's a stupid idea. By the way, if you go back to the Pulsar NX, the car that I owned at the time when this car was out, is a way better car. I had a Volkswagen GTI, a Rabbit GTI.
I
Guess
had a
what?
Honda Accord LX with a hatchback.
With a hatch.
The hatch is the greatest thing ever. Lay down the back seats. I
Yes.
put a dresser. I bought a dresser we still have that fit in the back of my car at an auction and drove it home.
A hatchback is way better and it looks better and doesn't look stupid like this. I mean, let's face it. Even if you actually use this, everyone around you is going to say, "Yeah, it's useful, but it looks stupid."
Yeah. I mean, think about it. GTI, this Honda Accord LX,
Yeah.
the three-door hatchback. Who else? What other? Those were the two big hatches at the time that you wanted either or for different reasons. But yeah,
Yeah. And of course, Stefan, if you want to go just a little bit bigger,
yeah.
you could get a Forerunner.
Yeah.
All right, bro.
All
We're
right, dude.
done. Best wishes to Adams. We miss you. Hopefully, you'll be back soon. And that's it. Stefan, close us out. Oh yeah, continue to improve Farmer. We love you.
Yes, I love you too, Dad. Yeah, keep getting better. And yeah, so once again, we're just two old guys who thinks everybody wants to hear our opinions, and we thank you for listening in because Steve and I, even if we didn't record these really what these podcasts are an assimilation of our text and our phone calls during the week. And this is kind of a summary of what we talk about all the time. And when Adams joins us, it's we get on the phone. We don't ask about the kids, the grandkids, and all that, the spouses. We just start talking cars. Then, oh, by the way, how's Elisa, Steve-O? Or, oh, by the way, I mean, so anyway, thanks for listening. We'll still come back to you sporadically, but every couple of weeks, take a listen to us. Remember, if you just hit the subscribe button, you'll get notified when we bring new one up.